and we are now ready to dive into our first big topic on Pro Soccer Talk this week. Andy, it's one you're going to enjoy. I know it is. What is going wrong at Tottenham Hotspur? And should Jose Mourinho be fired? I mean, 5 defeats in their last 6 games in the Premier League. They're languishing sort of outside that top 4 picture now, badly, almost slipping into mid-table. Is it tactics? Is it the system? What isn't working here, Andy? There's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of people who could be blamed for this downturn for Spurs, right?
Yeah, let me flip this on you real quick, Joe. I'm going to answer your question with a question, and I'd like both of you to answer it. What isn't wrong at Tottenham at the moment? Go.
Harry Kane.
Kane. But he's not in great form. He's not scored in a few games.
He is manufacturing chances, and he still looks good. And our boy Højbjerg, the unofficial player of this show, I think has still been pretty good. But you're right.
I was going to say you have a nice stadium, at least.
But nobody can go in and enjoy it. So even the really good parts of Spurs right now, there is, there's a real downside to it. It's just there are a lot of things going on at Spurs, and we only have so much time to get to them. So I'll try to be brief here and save a little time for you guys. But tactically, I think it's just not working with Jose Mourinho. The his philosophy of defense first, defensive solidity, it's all about being sound defensively. It doesn't fit what the kind of ethos of Tottenham is and what they have historically been, and even the squad of players that they have. They don't have a good defender at the club, which is bad when you start every game with 3 or 4 or 5 of them on the field. If you don't have one good one to put out there, and so they're already they're already in trouble as soon as the game starts. They can't control games because they don't have the midfield set up for true possession. Harry Kane has been amazing this season. Son Heung-min has been amazing this season, but it's all being essentially wasted on a team that's going to finish mid-table at the end of the season. And for as much as Mourinho gets the flack for, he's the one in charge, he's the one in charge of the team, the tactics, all of that, I don't know how much firing him now or in the summer fixes, because there are much bigger, I think, structural issues at the club.
Andy, I'm just going to read out some quotes from Mourinho, who's been asked about the situation, kind of the downbeat nature of where Tottenham are at right now. And this is what he said. I feel very confident, and I believe we are going to improve, and I will be in Tottenham's history for the good reasons and not the bad reasons. Nick, are you buying that? And when we look at who is to blame here, is it Mourinho? Is it the players? Is it Daniel Levy? Or is it a mixture of everyone who's really to blame for Tottenham underachieving? Let's call it what it is. They are underachieving this season.
I'll blame Mourinho for one thing. We know that sports are a copycat league. If you see something work, you then use it. Just to make a quick hockey comparison, the Anaheim Ducks won the cup with a bunch of guys who like to fight and score, and everybody signed an enforcer the next year. Eric Dyer's not a center back, the same way that Jordan Henderson isn't a center back. And for what Fernandinho did last year at Man City, I think maybe opened some eyes, and Mascherano before that. I just think he doesn't have defenders, and we saw them linked with them. We saw Liverpool linked with them as well, and nothing really happened. So on Mourinho, and we're going to get to this for sure, so I'll plant this seed. I think the fact that he could have gotten through last weekend without doing what he did in the post-match press conference, he could have just kind of let his players hang a little bit in a good way, like give his players support. I think that hurts, and he's not the best personality for this because people love to hammer him too. So they're waiting for that chance to hammer him. But personnel to me seems like the real issue here. You're signing Joe Rodon. You're getting Toby falling off a cliff. They don't have defenders, and let's be honest. With all due respect to Sanchez, he's been absolutely terrible this year. And I don't even mean like below average. I mean terrible for whatever team you would want him to be on. And that's bad.
That's very bad. And Andy, before I go on to ask you more about the Mourinho factor and who could possibly replace him, I just want a point that I thought about the club overall in this situation. For years, if not the last decade, Daniel Levy has been saving funds, and they moved to Wembley. They knocked down the old White Hart Lane Stadium, and built this incredible stadium. I mean, been there many times, lucky enough to be there. It is a wonderful stadium that puts Tottenham on a whole nother level with the super clubs in Europe. And we see from match day revenue in the first full season, they were right up there generating the kind of funds that they could go out and buy the best players in Europe. And they can afford to give Harry Kane and others huge contracts. But now they can't do that due to fans not being allowed in the stadiums. They haven't been getting that revenue in, haven't been generating it. And I just feel like the whole club and Daniel Levy from the top are maybe just feeling a bit down in the dumps about the situation, that we worked so hard to get in this wonderful stadium. No one's using it. It's not really benefiting us. They could just be playing on a park with their, somewhere in Tottenham in North London. They don't need this massive stadium right now. So does that play into this factor, this negativity at all, Andy, when Spurs players are looking around and seeing we sacrificed a lot, and at the moment it didn't really come to fruition for what we wanted?
That's a big question. That's a really big question. I think a lot of the issues with the club lies within that question. I think a lot of that is out of the control of virtually everyone at the club but Daniel Levy. And I would say this, as much as Mourinho has taken the heat because he's the public facing figure that's in charge of running what people from the outside see as the club, the team, the first team on the field. Daniel Levy has made a lot of missteps in the last, let's say, 24 months or so. Getting the stadium done obviously was like a legacy project for him, and something that will go down as a very, very big and important thing in the history of the club. Like Mourinho says, he'll go down in the history of the club for something very Daniel Levy had a period of time running Tottenham where he was pinching pennies and he was the frugal negotiator, the person you didn't want to do business against. You would love to do business with him. And he has gotten away from a lot of what, made him successful and helped Tottenham rise during that period, I think. Hiring Jose Mourinho was a big, big part of that because, as I said, he goes against, the stylistic ideas of the club, but also just the mentality of the club, where it is a very, for as high as Tottenham have climbed in recent years, it's still it's not a huge club. It's still a fairly local club as well. It's got a big footprint outside of the UK, but within the UK and within London specifically, it is still very localized. And so bringing Mourinho in gets away from that. And to bring him in, they had to get rid of, and I'm not even going to say his name through all of this because it upsets me so much that to fire a manager who went to a Champions League final 6 months previous, wanted to turn over the squad in the summer of 2019. That's what we're talking about right here. The squad needed to be blown up, rebuilt, not from zero, but taken down to the studs at least, and start again. And he knew it. He said, we have to do that this summer. And just because they had been to a Champions League final, Daniel Levy said, I don't think that's necessary. We're going to continue on with this group because we are so close and we will get over that hump. And it fell apart spectacularly. And it undid 5.5 years of just absolutely brilliant progress and building and growth from that manager. I still will not say his name. And he is the man for the job now. If we're talking about who replaces Mourinho if he goes, that's the person, because it's a project. It was a project when he was hired. It was a project in 2019. It's a project now, but he's got another job now, as of a few months ago.
So whether or not you think it's time to fire Mourinho now or in the summer or give him, the start of next season, whatever your view on that is, who should replace him? I mean, and looking at some of the names here, like who's next? It's a return to me for that young, hungry manager like Pochettino. I'm going to say his name. Pochettino, when he came in, he was young, he was hungry, had a young squad, built it up from the bottom. Someone like Julian Nagelsmann, Jesse Marsch, dare I say, with my US men's national team glasses on. Someone like that coming in surely is a return to what Daniel Levy would want. You wouldn't need to bring in big players on big wages for big money because those coaches are okay with working with young talents and putting together a team that could mesh. I mean, Nick, do you see kind of Tottenham changing that quickly? Because it's like, what do you want? All of a sudden you want Mourinho, now you want a young coach. If you go from one to the other, that's a dramatic change, isn't it? So what do you see for Tottenham's future, Nick?
Well, I think there is a magic bullet there. And it's such a loaded question when you bring up the name of Julian Nagelsmann. I think he's probably the best managerial prospect in the world. I mean, I know that's a bold thing to say, but if you told me a team was hiring him, I would feel it was like, oh, here we go again, Nick. Brighton hiring Graham Potter on steroids. This guy is so good. And they sold Haaland, and they're 2 points back of Bayern Munich. They've sold a lot of good players, and he keeps developing them. He's very young. If you get him in a project like Spurs, where they can win and build, there's no reason for him to leave. He could be a guy who's at a club for 10 years, which so rarely happens. But I love him. And if you can get him, great. Marsh, for a similar reason, I admit bias. I'm not putting him on Nagelsmann's level because that would be wrong, right? I mean, that would be wrong. But I like the idea of him. That said, Mourinho being there now, a coach who's known for defensive things. And who have they bought at center back since the summer? They bought Juan Foyth and Sanchez. Absolutely no one. And you look at the other pieces they've bought, and I would argue it has not been terrible at all. Reguilón is a good player. I like Lo Celso. I don't know if that's a very widespread thing. Højbjerg's been very good. I love Ndombele. If you want me to get me started on Mourinho, that's the one. One of the most productive players in France, and shows up and has to take a seat for a while. But that's the thing. I do think it might be as simple as Jose Mourinho not having good center backs. Is that oversimplifying? Maybe. I mean, Andy would tell me better, but it feels okay.
The major point for me is that there's been a lack of improvement in players where Pochettino got the best out of them and then some. Even guys like Toby Alderweireld went to new levels. Obviously, Dele Alli is totally not even a player Mourinho trusts right now. For me, there's been that huge regression, and that's never a good thing. And Nick, you referenced it earlier. Son's coming out saying, the players that love Mourinho, there's no problem in the dressing room. And then Mourinho comes out and chucks him under the bus a few days later. That's typical Mourinho. But Andy, I want to finish with you on this point. If Tottenham somehow pull off an upset against Man City and win the League Cup, or they win the Europa League, is that a good season for Tottenham? And would that, in your mind, as someone who has Tottenham close to your heart, say that, we should keep hold of him and see if we can buy those defenders in the summer, and maybe, just maybe, he is the right man long-term for Tottenham?
I don't say this to be dramatic. I don't say this to go over the top or, to clickbait at all. Winning a trophy this season would be the worst thing that could happen to Tottenham, because it would keep Jose Mourinho in the job for at least the first half of next season. And it is so abundantly clear that it's time to go in a new direction, that it was never time to go in that direction in the first place. And I will say, I wrote as much at the time when he was hired that was not the right hire, but keeping him in the job just delays the inevitable. He will go, a project manager that will be brought in to rebuild the club. How long must it languish and continue in this vein before that happens? Winning a trophy this season only prolongs that.
There we go. Tottenham do not want to win trophies, according to Andy Edwards. So that goes against everything they've been trying to build towards for a long, long time. But we'll keep you updated on Mourinho's comments. I'm sure there's going to be some good popcorn material coming up in the next few weeks as he and Tottenham try and get back on track. Julian Nagelsmann's been linked. And we'll have you covered on Pro Soccer Talk and NBCSports.com with all the latest news around Spurs as they try and salvage something from this season, which promised so much early on, but they have fallen flat quite dramatically in recent weeks.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long and join us at the weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern on NBCSN for Premier League mornings, and sign up for Peacock Premium, where you'll have access to 175 exclusive live games all season long.